However, upon approaching the dwelling he believed belonged to a criminal, the individual who answered was not whom he anticipated. Composed and self-assured, she possessed a comprehensive understanding of her legal standing. She denied him entry, and the subsequent events would irrevocably damage his career. Before we delve deeper, please share your location in the comments section as you follow along, and ensure you subscribe, for tomorrow's narrative is one you absolutely will not want to miss. Officer Carter had meticulously cultivated a reputation through dubious means, accumulating numerous complaints primarily for targeting black residents. He habitually assumed guilt without substantiating evidence, and wielded his authority as a tool of oppression rather than justice. Internal records revealed consistent patterns of intimidation at individuals' residences, a flagrant disregard for established procedures, and judgments made solely based on skin color. Despite being flagged on several occasions, he consistently received promotions and commendations, which allowed him to remain on active duty, exuding an unwarranted sense of confidence and invincibility. That particular evening, Carter proceeded with an air of purpose down the tranquil suburban thoroughfare, his footsteps echoing sharply on the pavement. The sun was descending below the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the impeccably maintained lawns. He halted in front of the house matching the address on his assignment, adjusted his uniform, and delivered a forceful knock. The door creaked open, revealing Monica Ellis, a woman of 38 years and a senior federal official. Her demeanor was one of calm and composure, completely unfazed, a stark contrast to the palpable aggression she immediately perceived emanating from Carter. "Good evening," Carter stated, his voice firm, his gaze sweeping across the porch. "I am Officer James Carter. I am here to conduct a check of this residence in connection with an ongoing case." Monica inclined her head slightly, her eyes meeting his with unwavering directness. "A case?" she inquired. "I am listening." Carter's jaw tightened as his eyes registered the doorframe. "We are investigating illicit activities in this vicinity. I need to confirm certain details concerning the occupants. Kindly step aside to allow me entry." Monica's lips thinned momentarily, her hands resting relaxed at her sides. "I believe you have the incorrect address," she stated carefully. "Could you elaborate on your specific reason for being here?" Carter's gaze hardened. "This is the address listed on the file. I am not obligated to provide further explanation. Simply step aside." "I am listening, Officer Carter," Monica replied evenly. "You mentioned a case, yet the individuals you seek are not present. I can ascertain this is a misunderstanding." He scowled. "I am certain this is the correct location. All indications point to me being right. Step aside now." Her posture remained resolute. "Officer, I have resided here for many years. I am informing you that this address does not align with your case. I am amenable to cooperating within legal boundaries, but I will not permit you to enter without legitimate justification." Carter's irritation intensified. He moved closer, an unconscious gesture that betrayed the tension in his stance, the impatience that had previously led to disciplinary action. "Individuals who are not concealing anything do not behave in this manner," he remarked, the edge in his voice betraying his escalating frustration. "I am not concealing anything," she responded, her voice calm yet firm. "I am aware of my rights, and I am requesting that you depart or obtain a warrant. You are at the wrong premises." Carter's face flushed with disbelief. This was not the anticipated outcome. The residents on this street had always complied without question. He had expected fear, perhaps excuses, anything but the quiet defiance he was now encountering. For years he had relied on his badge to assert control over situations. Here, it proved entirely ineffective. "Step aside," he repeated, his voice rising. "I am here on official business, and I will not be disregarded." Monica's hands remained at her sides, her expression unyielding. "You are making a grave error," she stated deliberately. "You are not the first officer to presume authority over someone well-versed in the law, and you will not be the last to face repercussions." The silence stretched, the atmosphere thick with tension. Carter's fists clenched at his sides, while Monica's steady gaze held him captive, exposing the full extent of his arrogance and the ingrained assumptions he had carried for years. Onlookers from neighboring houses sensed the unfolding confrontation, even without a clear view. The quiet street had never felt so charged with anticipation. Carter took a step forward, a final attempt to assert his dominance. Monica neither flinched nor blinked. Her tranquil presence, unshakable and serene, carried the gravitas of her experience. In that critical moment, it became unequivocally clear to Carter that this encounter would not conclude as he had envisioned. Every ingrained instinct, every tactic of intimidation, every prejudiced assumption based on race collided against her composed authority. He was confronting an individual who adamantly refused to capitulate, and within this refusal lay the genesis of consequences he could never have possibly foreseen. "You are making a mistake," she reiterated softly, her voice just loud enough to be heard, steady like a warning chime. And there, on that quiet suburban street, at the threshold of her dwelling, Officer James Carter comprehended that nothing would ever again be the same. Carter's hand moved instinctively towards his belt, every fiber of his being urging him to assert control, but nothing he had attempted thus far had yielded any result. Monica Ellis stood like an unyielding monolith. Her serenity was both infuriating and profoundly disorienting. He had encountered resistance before, but never from someone who remained so steadfast, never from someone who possessed an absolute clarity regarding her rights and limitations. "I do not have time for games," Carter snapped. "Step aside immediately." "I am not engaged in games," Monica responded evenly. "You have arrived at the incorrect residence. I am requesting that you leave or present a warrant. That is the law, Officer Carter. Will you adhere to it, or will this situation escalate unfavorably for you?" Carter's eyes flickered with a surge of anger. His ego, wounded by her defiance, demanded action. He had anticipated fear. He had anticipated compliance. She had shattered every expectation, and his pride compelled a reaction. "Do not address me in such a manner," he growled. "I am in command here. Step aside." "I acknowledge your position," Monica stated, her voice calm and measured. Yet every syllable was a pointed rebuke. However, authority does not equate to rectitude, nor does it grant you license to infringe upon another's rights. You must depart. The moment hung suspended. Carter's mind raced. He had faced reprimands for bias-related complaints in the past, but such incidents had never deterred him. He rationalized to himself that this was different. She was likely fabricating her claims. Perhaps she was concealing something. Possibly she was protecting someone. Anything to justify his intended next action. He moved a step closer, and the tension at the threshold intensified dramatically. The entire street seemed to hold its breath. "You believe you can speak to me in such a fashion because you are aware of your rights?" he spat. "You are fortunate I am not apprehending you at this very moment." Monica's gaze remained fixed upon him. "Proceed," she invited softly, almost as a challenge. "Attempt it. You will discover the profound extent to which you have miscalculated this evening." Carter froze, her words cutting through his mounting rage like a sharp blade. No one had ever dared to address him in such a manner. No one had ever challenged him with such unwavering composure. The sheer audacity of her calm defiance sent a jolt of shock through him. For a fleeting instant a flicker of doubt entered his mind, but the ingrained habit of control asserted itself. He reached for the door, intending to force his way past her. "You are impeding an officer," he barked, hoping the threat would compel obedience. "I am not," Monica countered, holding her ground firmly. "You are the one in the wrong. You have approached the incorrect residence. Should you persist in this course of action, you will be the one violating the law, not I." The moment teetered precariously on the brink of chaos. Neighbors discreetly observed through their window blinds, sensing the impending storm brewing at the doorway. Carter's hand twitched towards his radio, as if contemplating a call for backup, but his own hesitation betrayed his internal conflict. He desired assistance, yet he understood that even reinforcements would not easily resolve this predicament. "You do not comprehend, do you?" he exclaimed, his voice escalating. "I am fully aware of my actions. Step aside." "Then you truly fail to grasp the situation," Monica responded, her tone now sharp, conveying a clear warning rather than mere composure. "I have encountered individuals precisely like you throughout my entire career. You underestimate me due to my appearance, and that is your initial miscalculation. You erroneously believe your badge renders you invulnerable. It does not. Carter's hand halted its motion. Her words impacted him more profoundly than anything he had ever experienced during his tenure on the force. His past transgressions, his prejudiced assumptions, the numerous complaints, and his tactics of intimidation now starkly confronted the irrefutable reality. He was not in control. He had fundamentally misjudged the individual standing before him, and that misjudgment was already laying the groundwork for consequences he could not possibly anticipate. He attempted one final strategic maneuver. "You do not comprehend the gravity of the situation," he hissed. "I am at liberty to arrest you for obstruction, if necessary." "Arrest me," Monica echoed, her voice steady, yet imbued with a chilling seriousness. "Proceed. You will discover precisely with whom you are contending." In that precise instant, Carter's perception of his world underwent a seismic shift. The confident, untouchable officer he had presented himself as mere moments before was supplanted by a man teetering on the edge of outright panic. He recognized that he had irrevocably crossed a critical line. Every step he had taken, every assumption he had made about the nature of authority, every instance where he had relied on prejudice had led him to a precipice for which he was utterly unprepared. And then, the unexpected turn of events. As Carter fumbled with his radio to summon assistance, a neighbor emerged discreetly, commencing to record the unfolding interaction on their mobile device. The seemingly unremarkable quiet of the suburban neighborhood, which had appeared inconsequential moments prior, now became an unwilling witness to everything that transpired. The confrontation, the aggressive insistence, the blatant disregard for a citizen's fundamental rights. Carter's carefully maintained composure began to fracture. "Cease that recording," he barked at the neighbor, but his voice lacked the commanding authority it had possessed earlier. Monica did not even cast a glance towards the filming individual. Her attention remained exclusively focused on the officer. "You have made another mistake," she stated calmly, leaning slightly into the doorway, as if asserting dominance not through force but through sheer presence. "Everything you do from this point forward is under observation. Every word uttered, every movement made. And when this information becomes public, you will be the one held accountable, not I." For a prolonged moment, the street seemed to freeze in time. Carter's mind raced, a tumultuous confluence of fury and fear. He had profoundly underestimated her. The situation had spiraled entirely beyond his control, and the repercussions were only just beginning to manifest. Carter took a shaky step backward, his hand falling limply to his side. He could feel the oppressive weight of the unseen cameras, the collective gaze of the entire neighborhood, and the crushing realization that his arrogance and ingrained bias had led him directly into a carefully constructed trap of his own design. Monica's gaze never wavered from him, remaining calm, poised, and utterly unyielding. She represented the very embodiment of authority that he had attempted and failed to dominate. The confrontation had escalated far beyond mere words or threats. And Carter, the officer who believed he could command unquestioning obedience, now faced a woman who steadfastly refused to be subjugated, whose profound understanding of the law and unwavering confidence in her rights had systematically dismantled every assumption he had previously held, turning them against him. "You would be well advised to depart now," Monica advised, her voice low and deliberate. "Final." Carter's hands trembled slightly as he weighed his potential next course of action. One erroneous decision, one overly aggressive step, and the consequences would not only obliterate him, but also bring an irrevocable end to his career. And in that precise moment, the deceptive tranquility of the suburban street served only to mask the impending storm. A storm that would inevitably expose Officer James Carter, leaving him utterly humiliated and set upon a trajectory from which there would be no return. Carter's eyes darted nervously towards the street, the neighbor persistently holding their recording device steady, capturing every detail. The stark reality of being continuously observed began to penetrate his consciousness, and the pervasive arrogance that had sustained him for years started to crumble. He recognized, perhaps with a dawning sense of dread, that this confrontation would not conclude quietly, and that every single assumption he had harbored regarding authority and subservience was rapidly collapsing around him. Monica remained motionless, unperturbed, She had encountered officers of his ilk before, individuals who relied on intimidation and prejudice to maintain control. She understood their thought processes, their typical reactions when challenged, and she was resolute in her determination not to permit Carter to repeat the same mistake he had inflicted upon countless others. "You find yourself out of viable options," she stated calmly, her tone sharp and pointed. "You arrived here with the intention of dominating me, threatening me, or bullying me into submission. However, you stand at the incorrect doorstep, Officer Carter. And now, everyone observing this spectacle, your neighbors, your colleagues, anyone who witnesses this, will have a precise understanding of your actions." Carter clenched his fists, a volatile mix of rage and panic churning within him. He took a step closer, attempting to reassert control, but Monica remained steadfast. "Step aside," he barked once more. "I possess the authority to arrest you for obstruction." "Arrest me," she repeated, her voice steady, her eyes locked intently on his. "By all means proceed, but understand that every action you undertake is being meticulously recorded. Every word you speak, every threat you issue, and when your official report is scrutinized, it will bear no resemblance to the actual events. You erroneously believe your badge provides you with immunity, but it will not shield you from what is imminent." The tension intensified dramatically. Carter's past arrogance, his reliance on intimidation tactics, and his long-standing pattern of targeting black residents suddenly felt like an insurmountable weight dragging him down. He understood that this was no longer merely a matter of an incorrect address. This had evolved into a situation completely beyond his capacity to manage, and the inevitable consequences were already slipping beyond his grasp. Then the initial unexpected and sharp twist occurred. A second neighbor, an elderly gentleman residing across the street, emerged onto his porch holding a compact digital camera. Without uttering a single word, he directed the lens towards Carter's face, capturing the image of the flushed, enraged officer standing opposite the composed woman who remained firmly planted. For the first time in many years, Carter's confidence wavered. Every pair of eyes, every electronic device, every camera lens now served as irrefutable evidence of his arrogance, his palpable impatience, and his deeply ingrained racial prejudices. Carter's hand trembled as he reached for his radio. "Dispatch, I require immediate backup at this location." "Cease," Monica commanded firmly, cutting him off mid-action. "Do you truly wish to exacerbate this situation? Everything you're doing is unlawful, and you are fully aware of this fact." For a brief moment Carter froze. She had stated it with absolute clarity and directness, and the undeniable truth of her words struck him with the force of a physical blow. The officers who had previously enabled his misconduct would not be present to shield him from the repercussions of his current errors. The accumulated reports, the numerous complaints, the internal investigations, all of it was now converging upon him, and at this precise moment, every single action he took was being meticulously documented. Then the second unexpected twist materialized. Monica's mobile phone, held discreetly in her hand, illuminated, displaying a live video stream. She had been recording the encounter as well, acting as a precautionary measure in case the situation escalated. Carter had assumed she was powerless, but she had evidently anticipated his aggressive tendencies and his overconfidence, and he now found himself trapped visually, legally, and morally. "Do you genuinely believe you're in control of this situation?" she inquired quietly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried across the tense street. "Everything you are doing is being observed. Every action you undertake, every word you speak, it all constitutes evidence against you." Carter's jaw clenched, his voice betraying his escalating panic. I am merely performing my duty." "Your duty does not encompass harassment," Monica stated firmly. "It does not involve racial bias, intimidation, or threatening an individual who is knowledgeable of their rights, and it certainly does not include entering the wrong residence." The pressure mounted relentlessly, akin to an approaching storm. Carter could feel the cumulative weight of every complaint ever filed against him, every disciplinary action, every hushed whisper from neighbors about his harassing behavior. Monica's serene defiance, coupled with the presence of neighborhood witnesses and her own live recording, had transformed the confrontation into a self-inflicted trap. He took a step back, uncertain of how to proceed. His attempts to assert authority were rapidly disintegrating. The dual revelations, the public recording, and Monica's personal video evidence had irrevocably shifted the balance of power. For the first time, Carter experienced a profound sense of exposure. "You will not be departing from this situation without facing repercussions," Monica added, leaning slightly towards the doorway, her voice low yet incisive. "And it is merely a matter of time before every illicit action you have taken within this neighborhood, every prejudiced assumption you have harbored, every instance of abusing your authority comes back to haunt you." Carter's hands fell to his sides, his face a mask of frustration and utter disbelief. The surrounding streets seemed to constrict around him. The tranquil suburban evening had transformed into an unwilling witness to the unraveling of an officer who had spent years convinced of his absolute and unquestionable authority. Monica's voice broke the charged silence once more. "Depart now, Officer Carter. Walk away while you still have the opportunity, because if you do not, this singular mistake, this one decision, will indelibly define the remainder of your life." Carter hesitated, the sheer weight of her pronouncement settling upon him. Every instinct, every muscle in his body urged him to reassert his control, to push forward resolutely. But the undeniable reality of the situation was inescapable. He had misjudged her, he had misjudged the circumstances, and he had profoundly misjudged the neighborhood that now bore silent witness to his unbridled arrogance. And in that hushed moment on the doorstep, with the cameras diligently recording, the truth became starkly evident. The officer who had so confidently believed himself untouchable was no longer in command. His actions, his deeply ingrained assumptions, and his pervasive bias had led him to this precise juncture, and the ensuing consequences were something he would be utterly unable to evade. The street itself seemed to hold its breath, acutely aware that Carter's next move, his subsequent decision, would either seal his inevitable downfall or leave an indelible mark upon him that could never be erased. Carter's chest heaved as he retreated, his mind a whirlwind of frantic thoughts. Every instinct screamed for him to regain control, but the reality of the situation was undeniable and overpowering. He had lost it completely. The recordings, the assembled witnesses, Monica's unruffled composure. It had all coalesced into a trap of his own making, and he was now ensnared in plain sight. "You need to leave," Monica reiterated, her tone cold and deliberately firm. "This situation concludes now, or it will escalate significantly for your detriment." Carter's hand twitched nervously towards his radio, a desperate impulse to summon assistance. However, even that minor gesture felt hollow and futile. Monica's unwavering gaze held him captive, utterly unyielding. The neighbor across the street maintained their phone camera focused on him, and Monica's live broadcast ensured that every action, every utterance, every iota of aggression would be meticulously documented in real time. He hesitated. The accumulated burden of his past, years of ingrained prejudice, numerous alleged infractions, repeated intimidation tactics, and a cascade of formal complaints suddenly pressed down on him with crushing force. The arrogance that had served him well through countless prior encounters evaporated, leaving only a gnawing sense of fear. Then came the ultimate twist, a development that would irrevocably seal his fate. Monica shifted slightly to the side, reaching into her pocket and producing a small, official identification card. It was more than just a badge. It represented a clear warning, a verified confirmation that she possessed the authority to hold him accountable in ways he had never anticipated. "You are presented with a choice," she stated, her voice firm, her eyes locked intently on his. "You may depart now, and this incident will conclude without further incident. If you choose to escalate further, every single action you have perpetrated against the residents of this neighborhood, every complaint lodged against you, every prejudiced arrest you have made will be brought to light, and you will be compelled to answer for all of it. Do you comprehend my meaning?" Carter's lips parted as if to speak, but no sound emerged. The combined weight of the witnesses, the multiple recordings, and her unshakable stance had stripped him of every defensive mechanism he had previously relied upon. He understood with crushing clarity that walking away was no longer a matter of personal pride. It represented his sole opportunity to avert immediate and catastrophic exposure. A few tense moments elapsed, stretching out like an eternity. The quiet suburban street seemed to hold its breath, every shadow, every distant sound amplifying the intensity of the confrontation. Carter finally exhaled, a long, shaky release of pent-up tension. Without uttering another word, he turned, his boots making a heavy sound on the pavement as he retreated down the street. Monica observed his departure, her posture remaining erect and steady, her serene demeanor a testament to her extensive experience and inherent authority. The profound weight of what had just transpired settled over the street like a silent, powerful storm. Neighbors cautiously peered from behind curtains and blinds, witnessing not merely a confrontation, but a distinct reversal of power, a potent lesson delivered in the most public of arenas. However, the narrative was far from concluded. As Carter disappeared from view, Monica's phone emitted a distinct ping. A notification arrived from the live broadcast. The video had already started making its way across the internet, disseminated by the residents next door who had meticulously filmed every perspective. The story of a prejudiced officer being confronted and unmasked was propagating at a speed beyond Carter's ability to manage. His significant error in judgment would not fade from memory, and the repercussions he had long disregarded were now unavoidable. The initial internal grievances were lodged even before the day concluded. Monica's composed resistance, combined with undeniable proof, initiated an immediate examination. Within a span of days, Carter found himself suspended. Within a matter of weeks, the inquiries uncovered the complete scope of his consistent discriminatory conduct. The silent conceit that had sustained him for years disintegrated under intense examination. As Monica shut the door behind her, she permitted herself a small exhalation of release. The street resumed its tranquil pace, yet the resonance of that evening persisted. What commenced as an unintended confrontation on the wrong property had evolved into a reckoning, a public revelation of haughtiness and prejudice, and a potent reminder that authority devoid of responsibility can always be opposed. Carter's professional life was irrevocably damaged. The video evidence, the testimonies of observers, and Monica's unwavering resolve not to be cowed guaranteed that equitable outcomes would be achieved. 8 years of legal challenges, public examination, and federal supervision lay ahead for him. A consequence he could have sidestepped with a single, straightforward decision. Modesty. The principle lingered in the atmosphere, evident and irrefutable. Influence holds no value without adherence to the regulations. Hubris crumbles when confronted with understanding and bravery. And on occasion, asserting one's position at the opportune juncture can fundamentally alter circumstances. If you hold the conviction that fairness can triumph when bravery encounters accountability, please subscribe and activate your notifications, because the following day promises another astonishing narrative you absolutely will not want to overlook.